Okay, hello everyone. It is me, Pippi Pawpaw. I just wanted to share my thoughts on the monthly direct because I just got done watching it, and I'm both very excited and very mad. And I will explain why throughout this video. Um, anyways, I think let's start with the 40th anniversary announcements. Um, so they announced the Mario movie 2, and I was very I'm sorry, I'm starting off kind of slow right now. I know. I just you know, they announced the second Mario movie. I'm very excited about that. And also, when they did the casting, I verbally said aloud like an audible hell yeah when they said that Jack Black was going to be doing Bowser again. So that was fun. Uh just trying to remember all the stuff they did because there were multiple things that they were announcing as part of the 40th anniversary. Um, excuse me. Um, they announced a new Yoshi game. So that's kind of cool because there hasn't been a Yoshi game since Yoshi's Crafted World, and that was the very beginning of the Switch era. Excuse me. Um, they announced Mario Bros. Wonder 2, like Switch 2 edition, and that also sounds very interesting because we haven't seen any updates to that game, so that'll be fun because that'll be like a chance for them to. There's going to be a lot of new content, and that sounds very interesting. That like actually sounds worth my time because they kind of made it like a mashup between a party game and also like an actual like actually adding new content. So that's cool. Um, excuse me. They also announced a new Mario Tennis game, which again for the same reason, like Cool Beans. They haven't announced that one. They haven't announced a new tennis game since like the first year of the Switch one. Oh, also, this is a random mention, but I'm very disappointed that there were no updates on Splatoon Raiders. I'm just getting that off my chest. I'm disappointed that there were no updates. I guess it makes sense. They're really putting that on the back burner right now, but I'm just disappointed that they didn't say anything about that. You know what I just realized? It's kind of surprising that they didn't like that. I know Mario versus Donkey Kong didn't seem to be a very popular installation on the Switch game on the Switch. So it kind of makes sense, but it's too bad that it, it this was a great opportunity. This would have been a great opportunity for them to make like remaster of the first game or make or add some more to the Mario versus Donkey Kong game or whatever. But like seriously, I've been thinking for a while, well, they should just like take the level layout from all the Super Mario Bros. 1 games and then just reconstruct all of them in the Mario Bros. Wonder engine. Like that would be awesome. Um, now I'll get to now here's the part I'm upset about. I'm upset that that they bun that they are making a bundle of Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 because a lot of you might remember Mario 3D All-Stars. And here's the thing. A lot of people hated 3D All-Stars because they did not feel like enough changes were made to call it a remake. And sure, at that point it's just a port, not a remake, but Nintendo was advertising it as a remake and it was not a remake. And that also included Mario Galaxy. And with 3D All Stars, you were purchasing 3 games for $60. And this new one is probably going to be $70 to $80. And it's only going to be for 2 games. Now, granted, Mario Galaxy 2 might be big enough to, like, might be as big as, not only as big as Sunshine, but also so big that it might be almost as much content as 64 and Sunshine combined. But then again, maybe not, and I'm not trying to make excuses for them here. But yeah, so it's going to cost more, probably, for the price of 2 games. Um, one of which we already have a remake of. Other than that, I don't know if I said this already. They said there's going to be a new tennis game. They mentioned a lot of new features. That sounds interesting. But yeah, sorry, I'm not trying. I'm not trying to down. Don't get me wrong. I am not downplaying my anger about Galaxies 1 and 2. That's dumb and it's a ripoff. And honestly, whenever I saw this, okay, quick tangent. I saw this article once that theorized that maybe Tears of the Kingdom's $70 price was foreshadowing for new prices if and when the Switch 2 came out. And I swear that one article has jinxed us all now. But anyways, they're also releasing a Talking Flower toy releasing in spring, so that's interesting. I'm probably not going to I'm probably not going to care. I just, you know, if they felt the need to point it out, so do I. Excuse all right, so I think that's all they announced specific to the 40th anniversary. So now let's move on to all of the other Nintendo games that were not necessarily affiliated with the 40th anniversary. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Before we do that, I just remembered. There's not any new games, but they did announce Kirby Air Rider amiibos, and it's interesting because I don't know if any of you guys remember that Star Fox game right at the beginning of the Switch era. That required you to buy real life parts and assemble them and connect them to your game and stuff, and it was really dumb. Excuse me. But yeah, they're doing something similar with the amiibos for Star Riders, Air Riders. Where basically you can detach the characters from the rides and put them on different vehicles to change up the things. Um, and they also work like the Smash Bros. Amiibos. They act like CPUs, level up, and I think it would be really funny if you could play with only amiibos because you could in Smash Bros. And I would just set them all to max HP and max stock, and I just sit there and let them play it out. And it's just really funny it'd be really funny to think about like how would a racing game work with only amiibos. They're probably not doing that. I'm just saying that'd be funny. Um, but yeah. Anyways, moving on to the Switch I to the Switch games not explicitly not mentioned but not explicitly affiliated with the 40th anniversary. Um so sorry if I forget all these. Again, the entire direct was like an hour long. It was an hour's worth of content. I might have for all I know, I could be forgetting half the details. And these are going to be out of order from the direct because I'm just doing whatever I remember. So I got really excited about Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment because they kept claiming not to know when it was coming out, even though I could have sworn the first time they mentioned it, they said it was coming out on Christmas. except today they finally gave an update, and it is releasing November 6th, and I'm very excited about that. Other than that, I was also very excited that Metroid Prime Beyond is not releasing 2026. It is releasing December 4th this year, and there's going to be amiibos coming out periodically, related amiibos coming out periodically between now and then, including an amiibo of Samus riding on a motorcycle. Although I'm gonna be honest, they could have done a better job with advertising, because someone told me once, like my dad told me once, I just, as a general rule of thumb, just like, if you can't tell what an ad is for, then it is not a good ad. Because half the point of advertisements aren't even to be convincing, they're just to for you to know that they exist, to get your attention. So if you don't know what an ad is about, then it is not a good ad. And this was not a good ad, because she was riding around the desert and stuff on a motorcycle and stuff, and this was without any context, and it didn't look very Metroid-like. The only thing I had to go off, the only reason why I didn't think this was a indie game with a copyright neutral Samus, was because it looked a lot like Samus, and I just didn't know. I thought it would. I was fully convinced it was just an indie game with copyright neutral Samus. And then they got into the more familiar Metroid Prime gameplay. And it's also weird that, like, I understand driving in first person is hard in video games, but like they don't need to zoom out to full third person. The whole gimmick with Metroid Prime is that it's first person, but whatever. Anyways, still interesting though. Um and I'm still excited that it's coming out a lot sooner than we all thought it was. Other than that, as I mentioned, I'm disappointed that there were no updates on Splatoon Raiders. Again, I understand why, but it's still frustrating. Anyways, they announced Tamagotchi Life 2, which I always get Tamagotchi mixed up with Tamagotchi, so I didn't know what Tamagotchi Life was. But I know now. Um, And there was also a really funny transition at the end, because there were some little people that dropped out of a tree at the end of the trailer. I know it sounds weird. It was weird. There were a bunch of little people that dropped out of a tree at the end of the trailer, and then they used it as a really funny transition to transition back to the guy who was presenting. Excuse me. Um, I'm just forgetting what other games there were. Oh right, they talked about this new game, a Pokemon game called Pokepia. It's a simulator game but with Pokemon, and you play as a humanoid Ditto, and Ditto in human form. Um, Ditto human form. Oh yes, the final boss of Pokemon. Anyways, uh, that reminds me of that scene from Detective Pikachu with the you know. Anyways, um, excuse me. Also, other than that, they announced a couple new legendaries for Pokemon Z to A. They look really cool and stuff. So yeah, there's that. Excuse me. And they also announced DLC for Pokemon Z to A. And no, you're not hearing that wrong. I know Pokemon Z to A has not released yet, but they said they are releasing paid DLC for Pokemon Z to a game that has not even released yet. And I'm very mad about it. But I'm going to try to control my anger because I don't want to rage on camera. Um, the reason why I'm mad about it is just because the game's already, first of all, the game's already going to cost $70 to $80. Second of all, it's dumb as heck because if the game isn't out yet, then you shouldn't be charging people for the DLC when the game isn't even out yet. You should add it as free post game content to the game. Like it should be post game, I believe, but and they also in the DLC they released they showed new mega evolutions for Raichu, and it was this and the DLC was this thing called like Mega Dimension, which sounds cool. Golly gee, I wish I could play that without having to pay extra. You see my point? It's like I know Nintendo doesn't believe in free updates, except that's not a free up that's not a I know Nintendo doesn't believe in free updates, but that's not a paid update. That's not a paid update. That is making a game, splitting the that is making a game, splitting the game in half and selling half of it as DLC and trying to force people to buy it. And I think they were implying that it's going to come out after um Z to A, but I don't care. If they're not done developing it, then just at this point in development, they should just make it part of the game and just delay Z to A until Christmas. They should like I understand they might not want to delay it or anything, and that's an understandable reason, except I don't care. I don't want to be charged $30. I would happily, I would happily wait 3 months. I would happily wait 3 months for it to come out with DLC and save myself $30 by not having to buy half the game separately as DLC. And I think it's probably going to be more like $20 or $30 because that's been the trend with the DLC lately. But whatever. I think it's going to be more like $20, but whatever. Not the point. You get my point. Most of the Pokemon fandom would happily wait a few more months if it means that they don't have to buy the things separately. And if Nintendo is doing that on purpose, then they are people who can only be described with words that I'm not going to say on YouTube. Anyways, moving on. They made a DLC for Donkey Kong. They made a paid DLC for Donkey Kong Bonanza already. A lot of people's assumptions were correct. You go to the Kong Island, except you also unlock this new mode called Emerald Rush, where you work for Void Kong and break emeralds for him and get prizes. So it's kind of like Side Order, except a little less linear. And you can also do Emerald Rush on multiple levels of the thing. So, that's fun. Um, oh, I know what I was trying to think of earlier. But yeah, it also released today, so that's kind of weird. But yeah, anyways, as I was saying just now, I just remembered what I was thinking of earlier. So there's some other interesting news that I think is actually affiliated with the 40th anniversary, but I forgot to say it earlier, so whatever. Uh, so have you heard of the Virtual Boy? If you have, you would know that a lot of people really hate it because it was Nintendo's attempt at a VR console back when consoles were not plausible, and it failed spectacularly because it was expensive. The games were not were the, It was expensive and it caused people headaches because the games were only in red and black and were not sufficiently immersive. Um and I'm gonna tell you a thing. All right, so okay, sorry, I brain got a little ahead of myself. Um, so yeah, that one we caught up. Okay, good. They're bringing back the Virtual Boy. It's gonna be part of the Switch Online Plus expansion pack. Which, by the way, brief side tangent, I find it now that I think about it, it's really dumb that they call it an expansion pack because I understand that there's a difference between I understand that a lot of subscriptions have lower tier, gold tier, blah blah blah. But calling it an expansion pack just makes it sound dumb because it's already $20. It's already $20 a year for one account. And I think the expansion pack's like $40, $50 more, so you're paying $70 a year for a bunch of really old games. Free access to a couple of DLCs that you could otherwise buy as a like it's $70 a year for a bunch of old games that you probably aren't going to play. It, it, and access to a couple of DLCs and extra mm, purchases that combined don't cost much more than the Switch Online expansion pack and are only a one-time purchase if you purchase them normally. So you see where I'm going with this. Anyways, back to the thing. So they are and none of them are improved and they all still suck. And also, here's the thing. They're only playable with the new Virtual Boy accessory. And they were saying it's like compatible with Switch 1 and Switch 2 and it's just like I don't care. I don't know what your logic is with it. I don't know what their logic is with this. Nintendo has officially lost it, everyone. I just some of their games are really good and I love those games, but Nintendo overall as a company has just I I I personally can't bring myself to stop playing Nintendo games because like every once in a while they actually have a couple of really good games that are worth playing, but they're just I'm just if I didn't have that much attachment to so many of their games, I would just be so done with Nintendo as a whole right now. We really need to just start a petition to just force them to clean up their act. I don't know. Screw a petition. We need a full-on boycott or something. I don't know. It's just frustrating. I'm sorry. Let's move on. Um, Anyways, also their final announcement of the day was a new Fire Emblem game. And you know how I was complaining earlier about the Metroid Prime trailer because it was not misleading, but like it was confusing advertisement? Well, I was mad about the Fire Emblem trailer because it was a textbook example of that. Because in the opening of the trailer, it looked like Prince of Persia. And then I saw the colorful medieval people, the colorful looking medieval people, and I decided, oh, it must be like not Hollow Knight brain. It must be Fire Emblem. Um, excuse I don't know why my brain thought it was Hollow Knight. Must be Fire Emblem. Uh, but then I didn't see any of the characters that I know or that are like are well known that any non Fire Emblem player would recognize. And I was like, oh, this must just be some indie game then. And then I saw someone who looked like Palutena at the end of the trailer, and I was like, is this a Kid Icarus game? And then immediately after the trailer, at no point in the trailer was the title mentioned. I could be wrong. I skipped around a bit because I didn't feel like watching the whole thing. But at no point did the name of the game seem to be mentioned. Excuse me. And then only after did they say what you have just watched is a trailer for Fire Emblem. It's just like, come on, guys. Yeah, know your own games. Be good. Be good at advertising your own games, guys. I'm. s- I don't know anymore. Anyways, let's move on to the final category: indie games. Indie game announcements. For one, while we're still on the same subject, I am annoyed because a couple of indie games had the same presentation issues. For example, the Dragon Quest 8, like Dragon Quest 7 remake, that was confusing. I was also confused by the Final Fantasy 7 remake, not because I didn't know what it was, but I was confused because I was like, wasn't there a remaster of Final Fantasy 7 already? Except except it also my friend said it must have been the second part to that, except the direct explicitly said, I think the direct explicitly said that that the that it was the first in the remake trilogy, and it's confusing. Other than that, there was another one, but I can't remember what one. Excuse me. But yeah, not a lot of them were very interesting to me. They mentioned Resident Evil, which looks well made. I am not playing it because I don't like horror games. And I do like horror games, but I don't like playing horror games. And I'm very picky about my horror games because I'm still a scaredy cat. Excuse me. Um, excuse me. Uh, I'm sorry. I'm a lot. I forgot. Uh, I I could have sworn there was another indie game that I thought looked interesting. Oh, also there was another indie game that I was confused when it came up because it looked a lot like there was a character. It opened with a character that looked a lot like Ryu, and then I just realized no, it's a game very similar to Street Fighter. So that's clearly not a carbon clone of Street Fighter. Oh, There's also the Suika game, except now it's a planet. Interesting. I mean, I actually think that that's a relatively interesting mechanic. And for some reason, there's game share. I wasn't paying attention, so I don't know why they need game share. But, there's game share. But I mean, it's still like, come on, guys. Really, you're gonna like just toss like that minor of a game? Like, I understand, but it's just like throwing in throwing in the Suika game thing, throwing an announcement for Suika, throwing in an announcement. Like, I'm not very cultured in the Suika game, but that feels like the equivalent of throwing in an announcement trailer for a new Tetris game if Tetris was even less popular. Um, yeah, other than that, I got oh, I don't know if this is what I was gonna say, but I got confused by this one game because I thought it was a. I don't know if you guys, Shadow Labyrinth that was made a while back. Those uh, Pac-Man made by the same people who made Pac-Man. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I saw this game full of things that looked like Poyos, and I thought Puyo Puyo had jumped on the bandwagon too. Then I realized, oh no, it appears to just be a generic game with things that look a lot like Puyo Puyos. So that thing with things that look a lot like Puyos. So that's really weird. I don't know. They also announced a new Danganronpa game, which I don't care about, but I know of its existence because I I have watched this YouTuber named Nathaniel Bandy, and he's brought it up several times. You should go watch his videos after you finish watching this one. Uh, and I know he likes it a lot, so he'll probably be excited about that. I don't really care. He'll probably be excited. I don't know. Um, but I mean, yeah, I just. Oh, they also mentioned that there's going to be a second Kirby Air Riders Direct, probably elaborating more on the campaign that we saw, that was alluded to at the end of the last Direct. Which, by the way, the campaign had better be massive. Because like Smash Bros Ultimate, and I'm comparing these two because Sakurai made both of them, didn't have a huge story mode and was mostly carried by like the massive variety of the rest of the game. But like as was mentioned, Kirby Air Riders, as was mentioned in one of Nathaniel Bandy's videos, Kirby Air Riders is not a game worth $70 or $80, and that's how much it's going to cost. So the rest of the game is going to have the story seems to be the only important feature that they haven't announced yet. So um they're gonna they're gonna have to the story either the story mode is gonna have to be massive, or Nintendo or Nintendo's gonna have to start or Nintendo's gonna have to start believing in free updates real quick. Oh, I also wanted to talk about there are some indie games making Switch 2 editions. And there's some like actual update. There's some actual updates. I say actual updates because a lot of the time, so far, as far as I've seen, there don't seem to be a lot of differences between Switch 1 and Switch 2 editions for most indie games. It's- except there were games like Human Fall Flat. I don't remember all the other ones because that was the only one that I really remembered. Oh, Stardew Valley, stuff like that. And it's just like I get why Stardew Valley has mouse controls now, and I understand why it only has mouse controls, just because that's not useful on another console that doesn't come with the mouse. But like then there's just stuff like Human Fall Flat where they added like 5 whole new levels, and it just feels frustrating because it's just like, it's just like that feels like that doesn't feel like a Switch 2 edition. That feels like they're making a. I don't know if the. I don't know if they're going to require you. If you have the Switch 1 edition already, I don't know if they're going to require you to upgrade it. I mean, usually indie games require you to rebuy it, probably just because they're almost as cheap as an indie as an upgrade pack, anyways. But it's just like, it just feels kind of like a slap in the face because it really just because it really just feels excuse me because it really just feels like, sorry, I know I keep stimming a lot. I mean when I'm saying excuse me, I just try to mutter less because I feel like when I mutter it's more annoying. Anyways, it's just annoying because it feels like a slap in it feels like a slap in the face because it feels like, it's like, hey you, yeah, you, do you like Human Fall Flat? It, do you And do you like extra content for Human Fall Flat? Well, too bad. If you want this extra content, you have to pay $20 for it. And guess what? We made it console exclusive too. So if you don't have the Switch 2, well then you better go get in line at 3 in the morning to buy one. You see my point. You understand what I'm saying, right? Like that's just how that sounds. I don't care that much because I really don't give a crap about like basic I don't give a crap about most of these indie games. And I'm not trying to be unsupportive of indie games. I support indie games. I'm just not I'm just not actually interested in most of them. So like I'm just saying this doesn't affect me because I'm not that interested in most of these. But it's still annoying, and if you think about it hard enough, it feels like a slap in the face. But hey, a lot of people aren't going to think about it that hard, and that's why I'm here. To point it out so that people have more reasons to be mad at Nintendo right now. Anyways, that's all I have to say. I the A lot of the stuff looked interesting. I'm still mad about a lot of the stuff. Someone needs to get Nintendo to clean up their act. I'm just both really excited and angry and also a small part of I not a small part of me, but just like I'm partially excited, partially angry, and partially just tired of Nintendo's stuff. And not stuff as in like content. I'm just tired of Nintendo's crap, and I'm just like, I mean, this could just be the time of day at which I'm recording this, but I just feel tired of their stuff and not even angry, just sad and upset and trying not to cry a little because the because their PR is going to crap, and I'm really tired of them not doing anything about it. It's just I want to like so yeah. In conclusion, there's a lot of okay. In conclusion, there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. But also be wary of all this stuff because all this stuff is stuff that is happening right now, and it is stuff that either could affect it. This is really just gaming, so I'm not just gaming, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's not I'm talking like this isn't World War III or anything, but like, and I don't know, it could be if it gets bad enough, but whatever, you know what I mean. um Excuse me. It's just like, be excited. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to, but keep in mind that a lot of this stuff could affect you, and and even if it doesn't now, if we let it get out of hand, it's almost guaranteed to affect you at some point because there's a lot of movements going on with games right now, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now about how internet users on the internet are not having their rights respected, and companies just keep finding more and more excuses to demand for your personal information. and it's bad out there. So stay safe. Be excited, but stay safe and stay aware. That's all I have for now. If you enjoyed this video, please consider commenting, and subscribing. Who knows, if this video is popular enough, I might give my thoughts on the next direct. Bye.